Silver Age finally lands in February, and it will become the entry point for Flesh and Blood. It already checks several boxes, being both affordable and approachable. However, Silver Age is also new, and like anything new in the TCG space, it carries the advantage of that newness in exciting players as both a new problem to be solved and a new world to explore. But as the newness wears off and meta after meta becomes quickly solved, what will keep players coming back, and more importantly, will players even want to? Or will Silver Age suffer the fate of the previous small health pool formats? Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Silver Age must succeed. Flesh and Blood needs for Silver Age to succeed, not just for approachability, but for the pure logistics of future growth. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Silver Age, or Sage, has quickly become one of the most talked about developments in all of Flesh and Blood. Evolving out of the Project Blue beta test, Silver Age officially launches in February of 2026 alongside Compendium of Rathe, a product promised to catapult Silver Age into its mature form. The thing that has me personally most excited about Silver Age is, well, just how excited everyone is about it. And there's a lot of reasons to be excited. Conceptually, Silver Age is a lot of what we want from a format in terms of entry point and growth. Player excitement is due to three main factors: cost, price of play, and, yes, nostalgia. Flesh and Blood has an undeniable reputation when it comes to accessibility. For years, the game has been perceived as too expensive, and it is quite understandable as to why. The barrier to entry for the game has been the high cost of generic staples, and the "it'll always be playable" argument doesn't really assure someone looking at a $600 or an $800 price tag. Silver Age being a competitive format, yet limited to common, rare, and basic cards, removes that initial sticker shock. Your $20 ticket to the World Tour, absent of course the actual ticket price, but still way more affordable. Sage also promises an attractive pace of play, using young heroes but limiting the card pool to lower rarities. This lowers the power ceiling, meaning games don't end on turn 2, but yet are quick enough to still finish in 35 minutes. Last, but certainly not least, is that Sage offers the same appeal of the Living Legend format, in that old retired heroes remain playable. This allows players to dust off their old favorites, without the degenerate power levels associated with the Living Legend format. So yeah, conceptually, Silver Age checks a lot of those boxes. It promises to be exactly what we want from an onboarding and a growth path standpoint. But there's no denying that Silver Age as a format has to thread a difficult needle. And if Sage is going to succeed long term beyond when the novelty wears off, it will need to become desirable as a format and not just as a concept. Many entrenched players are very wary of any young hero health pool format. Both of the previous formats, Commoner and Blitz, were loved in their own ways, but they ultimately failed to win over both the wider player base and the competitive communities. Silver Age is, in essence, being tasked with being Mama Bear in the Goldilocks fable. To succeed, Sage must land between Commoner, which was too cold for the wider player base, and Blitz, which was too hot. Commoner was beloved for its price point, but its linear and value-based gameplay quickly led to fatigue across the wider community and failed to hold their interest. By contrast, Blitz carried a reputation for being notoriously swingy. With access to high-powered Majestics and Legendaries, games could be decided by a high-roll turn, where a player is steamrolled with little chance to respond. And while the perception of Blitz was certainly deserved in some metas and undeserved in others, perception is what it is, and perception sets the narrative. And in a world like we have today where negativity gets the headlines, once things go sour, it's very challenging to crawl back. LSS's current strategy to find that middle ground for Silver Age is clear. By adding rares, the small bump in rarity provides the teeth that Commoner lacks, giving heroes access to power spikes and build-around cards. And by stripping away the Legendaries and Majestics, Silver Age removes the nuclear weapons, ensuring that games retain a strategic back and forth rather than a race to a combo. So by design, Sage sits firmly between the two, But what remains uncertain is if, long term, it will in fact be just right. Now, look, I get it, I do. Oh, just another YouTube talking head being overly dramatic. And hey, you know what? Honestly, I actually hope that is the case. I hope from the bottom of my heart that in 5 years, you all come back here and show me with evidence that my fears were unfounded, because Silver Age is not only thriving, but is actually the best thing in the TCG market. Nothing would make me happier. Because the reality is, and I do honestly believe this, if Silver Age fails, I do believe it will be the end of LSS putting their effort into short form formats. Now, let's be clear about the definition of fail in this particular context. Fail doesn't mean crash and burn or failure to launch. It will take several years to know if Silver Age will be long-term successful. Blitz was the most played format in the game until it wasn't. Commoner offered a grassroots alternative to the competitive grind until folks got bored. The initial hype around Silver Age, the product support and attention, not to mention the competitive World Tour focus, will definitely buoy the format for quite a while. Not only does LSS need and deserve time to adjust and respond to what the format may need to improve and evolve, but it will take time to see if any initial drawbacks to the format can be corrected, or instead if they are actually fundamental flaws. And we also need to acknowledge the if you build it, they will come aspect of the Flesh and Blood landscape, right? If there's stuff to win, people will come to play it, regardless of if they like it or not. And as such, the failure of a format won't really be an immediate thing, but rather kind of a slow ride into the sunset as support wanes and interest follows. So fortunately, we'll know pretty much right away if LSS themselves have soured on the format. The way they just flat out abandoned Blitz was very telling, and it signaled an end to the format far before its official death. We will also know early on how the competitive elite perceive the format, and if they're displeased about being forced to play it. Already, we've seen chatter about how it's overly simplistic and not worthy of their time. Now, some out there may ask why the competitive players even factor into this discussion when, of course, the overall point is approachability to the masses. And that's a fair question, except remember, these folks are present at events 35, 40 weeks out of the year, and they are the folks with the more impactful voices not only in person, but also on social media. These folks drive both the dialogue and the actual metas, right? So their opinion does very much matter. And if Silver Age can't hold their interest, it will be a concern. So while Silver Age has definitely every indication that it can succeed, if, and that's a huge if that I hope never happens, but if another short form format stumbles, it would be both unfortunate and dangerous. Flesh and Blood needs a short form format to be successful long term, and for the game to engage with a wide enough audience to facilitate continued sustainability and growth. Classic Constructed is the game's flagship format, but there's no denying that it is grueling. Bringing in a shorter form version helps lighten the load. And this isn't just for the game's approachability, it's also for logistics. From a purely logistical standpoint, a single-day Classic Constructed tournament is constrained by the venue, not just in physical space, but in hours. 8 rounds of 55-minute Classic Constructed, followed by an untimed top cut, plus the obligatory check-in and registration time is already pushing 12 hours, and that's assuming that things run to schedule. And it dictates a cap of 224 players. Most Battle Hardens, which used to be Fab's single-day tiered tournaments, had capped their registration for this very reason. Never mind how grueling the time commitment was on players, but it was actually the logistics of the time itself that would limit larger events. By contrast, the 35-minute rounds of short form translate to roughly 3 rounds every 2 hours, which is a factor of 1.5. Not only is this easier on players and thus more approachable for someone looking at entering in their first tiered event, but it quickly escalates player caps into the potential thousands with even time to spare. And yes, while 1,000 players may be well beyond the current needs of the game, we saw firsthand at Worlds in Philadelphia how it impacted the sold-out dual battle-hardened tournaments. And even moving far beyond the competitive and the larger events, the impact is perhaps more felt at the LGS, where a short-form tournament can be easily run in a few hours on a weeknight, making Flesh and Blood a much easier decision for stores to start to support in an already jam-packed schedule. So yes, to me at least, it is quite clear that the game needs a short-form format, and Silver Age is that format. We want Silver Age to succeed, We need Silver Age to succeed. And while the initial hype for Silver Age is massive, for that momentum to continue, there are a couple must-haves for the format to succeed long-term. Without legendaries and majestics, some common and rare combos with higher natural intrinsic value can become dominant and pervasive. LSS must be willing to prune the meta quickly in order to avoid a stagnant solved state, which is, of course, no easy task, right? The streamlined format leads to being solved quicker and can often be difficult, if not impossible, to innovate around. Sometimes the best deck just is the best deck, and no amount of tech, creativity, or get good can overcome it. The only solution may be a scalpel, removing cards surgically to impact a targeted hero with minimizing splash damage to other heroes. As an evergreen format with no mechanism of permanent rotation, Silver Age must avoid the situations that arose both in Living Legend and in Commoner, where the same fundamental heroes sit at the top and merely exchange positions with each ban list. The community voting system will help to shake things up, but is ultimately not a balancing tool. The trick will be to release cards that supplement lagging heroes without simultaneously further buffing up a top hero. And again, no small task, as seen in Rosetta with cards that buffed Viserai and Chane, in trying to release a lightning card without helping Briar, or an earth card that won't feed Oldhim. It is also critical to ensure that the Silver Age format does not become too simple or linear. Success depends on LSS continuing to build out complex commons and rares that can lead to high-skill gameplay, while simultaneously avoiding overly aggressive power creep. Supporting underperforming heroes with specific pieces will allow players to display creativity, while in turn rewarding both innovators and players with extensive format knowledge. And certainly, bringing Silver Age to the World Tour provides exposure. Having a seat at the table on the World Tour means the $2 million in prizing will include Silver Age. But, to use a flesh and blood term, from an offering standpoint, Silver Age needs to go wide, not tall. The reality is that the type of player who is attracted to the game due to the cost and approachability of Silver Age is not going to travel the globe, but they will travel across town or occasionally across state lines. Instead, attendance at events like those during skirmish seasons will be the true indicator of growth. If Silver Age does remain in ProQuest beyond Pen season, that also may serve as a good indicator, but it is unclear on if Sage will retain its Pro Tour slot once draftable sets return. So in each of these must-haves, you may have noticed an underlying recurring theme. Ultimately, for Silver Age to succeed long-term, it needs to deliver one thing beyond all else, and that is variety. James White and Legend Story Studios have created an immersive, engaging, and beautiful world filled with creative and diverse heroes. The more of those heroes that can be embraced by the player base in Silver Age, the more favorable to the longevity of the format. Now sure, players can play their hero forever, but if Silver Age is done correctly, players will want to, and they'll want to try something else and something else again. Variety of both heroes and of viable strategies is the key here, and it will deliver the other must-haves. Now let's not kid ourselves. This will not be an obstacle-free road. Hitting the Goldilocks zone will not be easy, nor will be maintaining it. But Silver Age must succeed, and I do believe that it can. And if anybody can make it happen, it's Brian and the rest of the team at LSS. But it will also take, that's right, us, the community, staying positive over doom speaking, trying to innovate over complaining, and doing our best to grow and encourage our fellow players. Unfortunately, that part, I don't have as much faith in. But Sage is off to a strong start with lots of momentum, and if that momentum can keep going, we have a pretty good shot at long-term success. Go Commando, my friends.